Hello everybody and good evening. Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another live on this channel, which I'm really enjoying this week. Really grateful for so many of you have joined over the first 2 days, and as I keep saying, we're going to do this every night this week just as a bit of an experiment, see how it goes. And obviously I want your feedback on all of this to see what you think of it, because that's what really matters at the end of the day. I'm really enjoying it. But of course, that only counts for anything if you're enjoying it as well. So let me know. Many of you have already, so thank you for all the feedback. Loads of you already joined. Hello from Vancouver Island. Thank you, Len Bryan. Hello from Wales, Dan Rogers. Thank you very much. Hello to everybody. It was really nice last night to see so many of you joining from, literally all over the world. That's what's so amazing about what we have here, is a brilliant community of brilliant people, all interested in the same thing, but from literally everywhere. I absolutely love it. Thank you very much. Hello, Chris Jones Fuller in Didcot. Hello from Tucson, Arizona. Max Air, thank you very much. Brunei in Asia, Rock 111. Hello from Scotland, Dave the Fish 96. Hi, Dave. Brandon says you should do this once a week after this. Well, look, this is exactly what I want from you guys. I want to know what you think. This is obviously not sustainable to do this every night forever, for you or me probably. But I do want to do this. I do want to continue this, whether we're in lockdown or not. I want this to continue. So your feedback on how we do it and when we do it and how often we do it will all be greatly appreciated. Hello from Poland. Thank you very much. Holland, Brazil. Amazing, guys. Thank you. Bournemouth, the Netherlands. So many people. All right, shall we crack on? Thank you very much for joining. Tonight, as you've seen from the description, from the title of the video, we're going to be talking about Formula One's proposal to balance performance within our sport by restricting things like wind tunnel and CFD analysis. So essentially, by restricting aerodynamic research capabilities for the teams, that's how they're looking at trying to close the gap between the front and the back of the field. I'm going to read you an article where this came from. This is actually Andrew Benson's article from the BBC, this one. So I'll read you what's been proposed. Now, this proposal is now currently sitting with the Formula One teams. So what happens, because we're in this big negotiating period with the Concord Agreement for next year and beyond, there's been a lot of negotiations, but now we're at a stage where Formula One have put a proposal forward, and this is part of it that I'm about to read you. The teams now have to take that back after hearing the proposal or receiving it, assess it, do some analysis on it, decide whether they like it, all of it or bits of it, and then they'll come back. So that's where we are right now. Let me read you just this particularly relevant part. Obviously, part of it is the budget cap, and we talked about that previously. They're now talking about putting that on a sliding scale over the next few years, which probably seems sensible. But let's talk about this. Okay, so this is about the budget, the aerodynamic restrictions. So in addition to reducing the level of the budget cap, two key proposals are those governing aerodynamic research and the notional value of customer parts. Now, the notional value of customer parts is a nominal fee that will be agreed to be able to sell on components to a customer team. So that kind of falls into the category of what we were talking about last night. So that's another thing that's on the table. However, when it comes to aerodynamic research, it says there will be a defined benchmark amount of permitted wind tunnel time and computing data, and a sliding scale of allowance of that data depending on a team's finishing position in the previous championship. The top 3 teams in any given year will be permitted only 70% of the total allowance. The team who finished 4th, 80%, then 5% increments until 9th and 10th place teams are allowed 105 and 110% of the total. So in summary, that means that the team who finished last in the championship will get 40% more aerodynamic research available to them the following year than the team that won. Discuss. Now, that on some levels seems really sensible. Obviously, I want to hear from you guys, and I'll look through the comments as we go. But the bigger question, perhaps, that this might spark for a lot of people is, should Formula One be even trying to balance performance like this? Should you be penalised if you have some success in Formula One? Should the team that wins the season, wins the championship, should they then be pegged back because they did such a good job? A fundamental question. Now, I asked this in a poll on YouTube earlier on. Many of you have taken part. I'm going to show you the results of that in a moment. But what are your first thoughts on that? Some of you saying, Carl Harvey, it's a daft proposal. I'd love to know why, Carl. Rock111 says, good system. Seems fair, says Dave the Fish. Can't see Red Bull liking Aero research restrictions because it's one of their strengths, says Steve Cole, 1984. That's a really good point, isn't it? It's going to really affect some teams more than others. If you think your engine for your team is one of your biggest strengths, if that's one of your biggest assets, but maybe Aero is not so much, well, it doesn't hurt you as badly as if you're a team that really thrives in the Aero department. If you've got an Adrian Newey, you can imagine he's sitting there looking at these proposed regulations, finding a way to reject them somehow at the next meeting. What else have we got here? Why reward mediocrity, Andre says from Caledonian. Why reward mediocrity? Well, are you rewarding mediocrity, or are you trying to... Here is the bigger question is, and I asked this the other night, is Formula One an entertainment spectacle, or is it a competition amongst the teams? And of course the answer is that it's both, but which one's more important? Because competition between the teams, you just let them go. You give them a set of regulations, you let them go for it. And that's what we've done over the past few years. And look, we've had periods of time, like we're in right now, where Mercedes have utterly dominated. And many people are turning away from Formula One because we sort of know who's going to win. So is that a good Formula One? Is that what we want? Or should we be trying to manufacture ways to bring the competition closer and therefore make the spectacle brilliant when we all turn on our TV where we've got cars that are close and racing close together? Or should we be letting the teams go for it, and should we celebrate the teams that do well, like Mercedes over the past few years, and just tip your hat and say, well done? A big question. It's a fundamental question, and I'll come to that in a moment. Let's see. If your aerodynamics team can't get it right the first time, how can they get it right the second time, says William Hussey. Okay, interesting point. So if you didn't get it right last, but now you're allowed a little bit more research time, what says you're going to get it right this time? And that is a fair point. But what more research time allows you is the opportunity to find mistakes or make mistakes, but then correct them, where you may not have that opportunity if you're in this restriction. So if these restrictions are opened up, perhaps you can make mistakes, but then find the solutions to those problems. That would be my answer to that one. Why not stop all test limits within the budget? Why not stop all test limits within the budget? I'm 100% sure what you mean there. If you're saying if we've got a budget cap, should we just let the shackles off and let them do whatever they want as long as they stay within the budget? And that is a decent argument. I've kind of moved towards that way of thinking myself. In the technical regs, should we open them up, given that we're now going to be operating under a budget cap, which should stop us going ridiculously crazy on spending silly money on silly things? Teams could decide where they want to spend their budget. It might be on an incredible technical advantage, or it might be on more aero research. It might be on something else. So that's an interesting point. Let's have a quick look before we go any further on what you guys said in this poll that I ran on YouTube earlier. Let me just refresh it to get the latest results. The answer that came back were pretty overwhelming. So my question was, and this is a very basic question deliberately, my question was, should Formula One be looking to level the playing field by penalising teams when they're successful? Now that's quite an open-ended question, I know, deliberately so, because I wanted to get the fundamentals of what you think on this. Because that's what we're talking about doing here, penalising a team for doing well to allow the others to catch up. What do we think? Oh, sorry, I didn't say the result. The result of that was overwhelmingly 75% of people said no, we should not be doing that. 13% said yes, 11% said no. So 75% of you that answered this poll, and there were hundreds of you that did that, said No, we should not be doing this in Formula One. It's not Formula One. It's not what Formula One stands for. Is that what you think? Anko says, poll, I haven't seen it. Anko, it was in YouTube. If you subscribe to my YouTube channel, you would have had the poll pop up in your feed. I think that's how it works. So I've been doing these every day. So a little poll ahead of the evening's live. I'll do another one tomorrow, depending on what the subject. So if you subscribe to the channel, you should get that poll in your feed and be able to contribute to it before the live video. Okay, it's a no from me, says Marc Mitson. Nope, bad idea, says Duck PBC. I like the wind tunnel approach. I voted no for adding weight to the car like other series. Okay, so Cameron Roll there says, because my poll was quite open-ended, I didn't specify about limiting aerodynamic research. I literally kept it open to say, should we be trying to balance performance? And what he's saying there is that he said no, basing that decision on something like what British touring cars does, where they add a weight penalty to the successful cars. That's just another way of balancing performance. But fundamentally, isn't it kind of the same thing? Isn't it restricting what the successful teams can do? Isn't it pegging them back a little bit to allow the teams further back to catch up? And that's why I wanted to do that poll in such a fundamental way. So it seems here that most people overwhelmingly think it's a bad idea, that we shouldn't be doing that. And I totally am with you on that side of things. But what about the idea that if we don't do something like this, and if we left Formula One unrestricted, let's say, if we just left it on the path that it's currently on, well, wouldn't the gap between the big teams and the little teams just get bigger and bigger and bigger? It's already huge. We've already got a top three that are, a mile away from the rest. So we've got a two-tier Formula One. Is that what we want? Do we want that to get more and more extreme? If one of those big teams were to leave, if Mercedes were to pull out of the sport, let's say, that would leave just two in the top tier, and that's not much of a spectacle. So we do have to think bigger picture. My personal thing I want to know is that I'm kind of with you that we shouldn't be looking for balance of performance in Formula One. But on the flip side of that, I do think we should be creating a much more level playing field in which everybody on the grid has an opportunity to do better or to be able to close the field up. Now, that might seem like I've just contradicted myself, but the point is we've got a series of teams which have a huge array of funding levels across the board. And it's all very well to say, look, if you want to come and play with the big boys, you've got to have the right amount of money to do it. That's all very well, but that's not a sustainable approach to Formula One. So I should look at some way of making the spectacle better, i.e. the racing, a closer race where there's more entertainment, because that's why people... And of course, there are loads of ways to do that. I'm not necessarily saying this is the right one, although I do think it's a relatively sensible approach, much better, like somebody said, than weight to the cars, in my opinion. All teams should get the same is completely against F1 spirit. Big F1, it destroys itself this way. Yeah, I mean, I kind of agree. It shouldn't be everybody gets the same. If you're successful, you should that you gained from that season. Your status within the sport goes up. All those things are all absolutely valuable assets that you should be able to enjoy if you're successful. Tom, yeah, it's a bit laggy, isn't it? Oh no, have I lost you? Yeah. Yeah. Sorry guys, I'm not sure what's going on there. We've got a slight internet issue. It's definitely lagging, isn't it? Apologies for that. Let's give it another go and see if we can keep it going. It's definitely not perfect by any stretch. Okay, laggy and freezing. All right, sorry. We'll give it another go. If it doesn't work, we'll have to stop and maybe I'll try and restart it. And if that doesn't work, I don't know what we do. Just refreshing. Hold on. Okay, look, I'm going to keep talking. I'm not sure how good this is. For some reason, it's working now. Okay, good. Well, let's keep it going, and I apologise if it's not working. That's what happens when you live out in the sticks like I do. It's ropey at best. Okay. Oh, goodness me. That's really annoying. All right, sounds like you might be able to hear me. Okay, well, anyway, let's look at some more of your comments on this. Budget cap mean that one team gets it. If one team gets it wrong from the start, it's way harder to fix throughout the season. That's a good point, isn't it? So one of the budget cap will mean is that if you commit a huge amount of funds to a project, to a line of development, but it doesn't then work, you've already committed. There's no more available to backtrack. That's one of the things that, you know, when I first started in Formula One and there was an almost endless budget, we never had that issue. You could almost redesign your car and come out with a second car halfway through the season because the budget was always there to do it. And if you ran out of money, we just tobacco sponsor and ask for a load more. So you're absolutely right. That is a problem which does focus the importance on getting it right first time. If you've got a budget cap like that, everybody, of course, is in the same boat, and that's what Formula One is. It should be the very best people doing the very best job within the restriction that the sport sets out. Josh Smith says the lag just adds to the experience. Well, I hope it does, but I'm sorry about that. Hi Mark, your views on DRS, keep or stay? Dan Rogers. Okay, keep for now because we haven't found an alternative, but hopefully when the new rules come in 2022, of course they're all designed to try and eliminate the need for DRS. So in an ideal world, we'll get to a point in 2022 with the brand new cars, they'll prove that they are so good at closely to each other, following and chasing and racing hard, that we can just chuck DRS in the bin. That's my ideal scenario. Switch to Twitch. Yeah, a few people have said that. Simpler cars, achieved by simpler, less cost to be competitive and reach a maximum level of performance. Martin Boyle. Okay, simpler cars. Do we want that? Now, again, this is one of those things that there's no simple answer to here. Simple cars are great because they tend to make make performance levels converge. You know, if we limit the amount of trick technology on these cars, there's less differentiators between them to make one team far better than another. But you then start to move towards a kind of one make championship. You know, not quite that far, but you start to move towards that. And the argument against everything I've been saying right now is if you want to improve the entertainment spectacle, if your priority is you want close racing where you don't know who's going to win, well, the simply on right now, Marc Priestley for FIA president. Thanks, Danny Hartstock, but no thanks. Yeah, Shane Dunn. Simple cars mean it's just not F1, it's F2 or it's old F3000. With you on that one, I agree. Hello from New Zealand. Campbell Hicks. Hi, mate. That is a long way away. Simple power units costs. Dean Arnold. Yeah, that is one way to cut costs. However, simple power units almost certainly mean the features that currently prop up our sport, let's be honest, will walk away. They're not interested in simple power units. They are interested in a power unit that's, you know, at the cut they can celebrate, they can shout about, and maybe they can take some of that learning and development, if not the actual technology, and put it into their own road cars. So, look, we'd all love to go back to a very simple, normally aspirated V8 or V10 because the sound would be incredible, the atmosphere would be amazing. Bit modern Formula One. Reverse grids. Okay, Ben Williams, reverse grid, non-championship, just for prize money, unpredictable racing, great scraps, and the smaller teams get some cash. Well, you may well know, I did a video on all of this recently on reverse, on a new championship point system. And my idea, very briefly in summary, was to give a normal qualifying like we have now, because I think that's great, seeing the cars at the absolute limit on a Saturday, but give points for that under this new point system. So full points like you would for a race. So if you get pole position, you get maximum points. And then on Sunday, flip the grid, reverse it, and start the guy that came first in qualifying at the back, and then let's just see what happens. And I know that's massively controversial. That's like lighting the blue touch paper, because when I did that video, the response in the comments was awesome. It was amazing. It's lit fires everywhere, which is what I want from this kind of thing. But that was my idea. You know, that ultimately, if you start the fastest guy in the fastest car in the first position in the race, what's going to happen? He's going to disappear into the distance and continually go round and round faster than anybody else can and start to build an unassailable lead. That's the fundamentals of what will happen. And, you know, you can say that's Formula One. You know, he did the best job on Saturday. That's why he's at the front. That's what he deserves to be at the front. Yes, absolutely. I agree with that as well. But if you want close racing, if you want mixed up and unpredictable racing, let's stick the fastest guys at the back. Thoughts on reverse grids? What do you reckon? Do you think we'll ever see F1 and Formula E racing in the same rave, but split into two classes, like in the same race, but split into two classes? No, I can't see that, Stephen Walters. I can't see that happening at all. I think they're two completely different entities. Formula E cars are very much designed for the tight, twisty street circuits, not for the open road circuits that Formula One races on. They're completely separate, and I think they deserve to be that way as well. Reverse grids promotes losing, Dean Arnold. No, I don't agree. I think if you give points for qualifying, you score maximum points. Nobody is not going to do their best in qualifying if you have the chance to score maximum points. Don't forget, qualifying is the one time in a weekend when your performance is almost entirely under your control. That's your best opportunity for points, so you've got to go for it. On a race day, of course, you're reliant on everyone else around you, not crashing, not breaking down, or so many other elements. So race day, you can't guarantee points. Qualifying, you can at least control your own performance. So points for qualifying and then reverse the grid is what I'm suggesting. Yes, you're correct, John Webster. We need entertainment. Just flip the top 8. Well, of course, yeah. So Formula 2 already operates a reverse grid system where they flip the top few cars only. And that kind of works. Let's face it, it does work really well. It works for the top end. It makes it really exciting when they do that, which is why I think it could be moved into Formula 1. I don't see why we can't open it up to the entire grid. I know that means you've got very slow cars at the front. But look, we need to close the performance level up of cars anyway. So if we can minimise that gap, I don't think it'll be such a problem. Reverse grid would make race pace more important than quali pace, but would it mean you try to qualify last? No, John Holmes, it wouldn't, because you're giving points for qualifying. That's exactly my point. You have to go flat out in quali because you need those points. How's about on DRS we disable it for the top 8 in the race? You drop out the top 8 and it's re-enabled from I Am Grumps. Well, I don't know. What do you think on that? There are so many things you could do with... Who requested the doggos last night? Come here. Come here. Come on. Look, come and say hello. Come here. Come here, Fran. Come on. Abigail. Come on. Good boy. Look, here he is. Oh, both of them. There they are. This is really not helping. We've only got 5 minutes left. It's all right, he can stay there if he wants. He's found himself a comfy spot. There you go, a little cameo from both dogs by popular demand. What was I saying? DRS. We could disable it for the top 8. Another suggestion that I've seen, which I actually thought was quite interesting, why not use it the other way round? Why not have DRS available until you get to within 1 second of the car in front? You know, the point of it is to allow cars to close up and run closely to each other, isn't it? At the moment, you can't get it until you're within 1 second. And for lots of cars, that can take 20 laps to achieve. See you later, Wilson. Aussie Shepherds, yes, they are. Stuart Keith, Aussie Shepherds, yeah. Get rid of DRS altogether, Andy Nixon. Who let the dogs out? Reverse grids will destroy too many front runners' races. Now that is, of course, the issue with reverse grids, is that you've got a minefield to negotiate. If you're Lewis Hamilton in the fastest car, starting at the back of the grid, you have a minefield to negotiate in the early part of the race. But is that not entertaining as well? Is that not is that not a skill that drivers under that kind of format would have to start perfecting? For me, it's not something that's insurmountable. Just Kaz, what do you mean Pharrell needs a diet? Reverse grids are unsafe. Points for all finishers would be the safest and fairest option. Look, I get that there's a safety element, but come on, motor racing is not safe. It's dangerous. We want cars to be racing closely. If we want it to be completely safe, absolutely, we don't want cars running anywhere near each other. So what we don't want is a massive disparity between front and back of the grid, which is a whole other subject altogether. We need to try and close the gap, and that's part of where we started this evening's broadcast from. We're talking about how Formula One are trying to find solutions to close the performance gap of cars. But if we've got cars that are all in a relatively same space in terms of performance, I don't see reverse grids being a massive drama, personally. That system would suit a team like Red Bull, who are capable to keep the faster teams behind them, but also overtake slower cars easily. Well, of course, some of these things will always suit certain teams more than some others. But if you're making a big change like the ones we're talking about and fantasizing about tonight, it just resets Formula One. You have to find a way to adapt to those new rules and play your strengths into that new system. And of course that might shake things up in the short term, but eventually, like we have had in every single major rule change across the sport over the years, the very best teams will find their way to the top because they're able to adapt quicker, they're able to do a better job in whatever restrictions or rules are in place. Nico Hülkenberg back just for the Monaco podium in reverse grid. Harsh, Rubens Arnold's. Did you see my video from earlier today? I did a sort of news roundup. It's on the channel, so check it out after this if you like. But one of the stories in that video was about Nico Hülkenberg trying to find his way back into Formula One. And another one, actually, which I thought was really interesting and made the title of the video, some names being put forward for potential replacements for Jean Todt as FIA president. One of which is another Ferrari top boss man. What do we think of that? I think I know what we think of that. Monaco reverse grid would be funny. Okay, so lots of people have thrown that back at me when I put this suggestion forward. How could you possibly do that at Monaco? For me, right, that's one race in a season. And yes, it's a unique race. It's a bizarre race. It's at the moment, Monaco is no spectacle on race day, is it? Because no one can overtake. And even if the guy at the front has half his car falling apart or has his ERS system break down, he can still run around with, hundreds of horsepower less than anyone else, but keep everyone else behind him. Is that entertaining? Is that a spectacle? It's not. So you start the fastest guy at the back. Yes, he's got some desperation to get to the front. Yes, it's be incredibly hard, but my goodness, it'd be entertaining. And if we've got to find a way for one weekend of an entire season that might be a compromise in a solution like that, is that a massive drama? We all complain at the moment about how Monaco on a Sunday is boring. Could spice it up. Toto Wolff, new boss, FIA new boss. I don't think he'd want that necessarily. I don't think that suits him particularly. He would be amazing because I think I'm a big fan of Toto Wolff, but would he be right in the FIA or would it be right for him? Possibly not. Eddie Jordan for FIA president, Jackie Twix. Are you kidding me? Eddie Jordan, goodness me. I mean, it'd be entertaining. I'd love to see what he came up with. Domenicali for FIA president. Well, there you go. That was one of the names put forward in the video earlier. A former Ferrari top man. What do we think of that? Monaco reverse grid was... Oh, I missed that one, sorry. Oh no, I can bring it back. Monaco reverse grid would almost guarantee Williams a win. Well, and maybe it would. But, their car right now is so far off the pace that surely, even at Monaco, a Mercedes would get past a Williams over 60-odd laps. Wouldn't they? I don't know. Maybe they wouldn't. But it would give Williams an opportunity over the course of that particular one weekend. And is that such a bad thing? Lucky straws at Monaco. Right, I've just realised we've done half an hour already. Blimey, that flew by. Let's take one more question on this from you guys. Yourself as president. Kimmy! Kimmy for FIA president. I mean, we'd all love that, wouldn't we? What an amazing sight that would be. Okay, here's one. Can you explain Otmar Schaffnauer's point on how they have the smallest budget? I get Haas, but Williams. That comes from LGH Dotmar. Hope I pronounced that right. Let's finish on this one for tonight. It's a good question. In today's video, one of the other topics that cropped up was talking about Racing Point. They've had a big cash injection, of course, from Lawrence Stroll. Their budget has gone up, as he said, by 30 to 40%. But he still claims that they are both the team with the smallest budget in Formula One and the fewest number of people, if you lump in all of the subcontractors that Haas use for their unique business model. Let's talk about that very quickly. I was as surprised as you were about that, because I didn't think that would be the case at all. I thought Williams certainly would have one of the smallest budgets, and I'm still would perhaps take Otmar up on that, that it's got to be close. I'm not sure with their cash investment that they've had that they would still be on a smaller budget than Williams. But in terms of number of people, I can see that. They're building the team now, but over the past few years, they have had the smallest number of people, the smallest number of resources, which is what's made their performance level just so impressive. And on that note, that's what makes Racing Point so happy about these proposed budget caps that are coming in now, because what's going to happen is their performance levels that they've always had to achieve on this lower tier of budget compared to the rest, and yet they've been mixing it to some extent with the rest, are now going to be evened out with the rest. With the likes of Mercedes and Ferrari and Red Bull can only spend a similar amount to the amount that Racing Point are able to spend, well, Racing Point are experienced in getting the maximum out of that amount of budget for a season. The bigger teams, well, they have to make some massive adaptations and adjustments to this new way of working. It's going to be really interesting to see how the budget cap shuffles up the order, if indeed it does. But Racing Point perhaps look like they're in the box seat, and some others as well, but Racing Point look like they're in the box seat for this next set of regulations under a budget cap. Right, there we go. Listen, great to have you all on board again tonight, guys. I really appreciate it, as ever. I'm sorry about the slight hiccup with the internet. We will be back tomorrow night, same time, Thursday night, and then one more on Friday. And over the course of the next couple of days, let me know what you've thought of it so far. Let me know what you'd like to see. If I can change some things over the next couple of days, we'll experiment. We'll try some new stuff if you want. Just let me know in the comments. I do read every single one of them, I promise you. But thanks again. Really appreciate your time tonight, and I'll hopefully see you all tomorrow. Ta-da.